Court Vision is back in session.
Welcome to Court Vision from New Roads Media.
Hello, hello, hello. We are back. We have ourselves some deliciousness. We have quite possibly, no, I don't know. I don't want to go to, because there's obviously been some big trade happened for the Lakers and the Mavs. Neither of us have or you might have Mavs. I don't have Mavs stuff. So Lakers, Mavs, huge trade. I'm not sure. It's so hard because there's been so many big trades the past decade to say that this is the biggest trade of the decade. But, you know, I mean, the argument could easily be made that this is the biggest trade of the decade. So I'll give the breakdown of the trade. The Lakers get Luka Doncic, Maxi Kleber, Markieff Morris. Dallas gets Anthony Davis, Max Christie, and a 2029 first-round pick. And the Utah Jazz are involved.
What could possibly, and I'll let you finish, but what could possibly make a shady Saturday night, how did this happen, black market deal more vintage current NBA? Get Danny Ainge involved, right? There's a deal going down in the back streets at 10:30 on a Saturday night. Somebody called Danny Ainge. Of course, that had to happen. I love that. It's my favorite part of this trade. Sorry, keep going.
The Jazz get Jalen Hood Schifino?
It doesn't matter. Sorry, buddy.
2025 second-round pick from who? I have no idea. And a 2025 second-round pick from the Clippers. Who I don't
Trade drug dealer. Really?
Hold on. Let me clarify this, or not. Let me specify. This is NBA.com. Didn't even give me who the second-round pick is coming from.
No, it does, and it doesn't matter. There might even be a rule that just says that Danny Ainge has to be involved because that's the world we live in the NBA. I have no idea what he's doing here. I have no idea what he necessarily facilitated. But I want to go back to
anything, or are they just taking on stuff?
They seem to just be taking on stuff. I'm sure they probably moved some sort of exemption or something to make this possible. And listen, if you're out there listening and you want to jump in on it, feel free to just clarify in the comments for other listeners. But don't try and correct us. We're genuine when we say we don't care about Utah's role in this thing. But I do want to go back to something you said, Gilroy. This I'd have to think. You said decade, which is a unique spot to stop at. Because I do think this is the biggest trade of the last decade. I think it's easily the biggest trade because in this millennium, you'd have to discuss, or in the last, I guess, let's really go back 30 years. I'm not exactly sure where one of these is. You'd have to consider the Shaq trade, right, to LA. You'd have to consider
you mean from LA to Miami?
No, I was thinking from Orlando to LA, but then LA to Miami also.
I thought that was a signing. Yeah. Oh, it was a sign and trade.
You'd have to consider, you'd have to consider when the Nets attempted and then horribly failed at that coup with Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce, and that one horribly backfired just because of the names involved, right? It didn't even work. But in terms of how often does an MVP candidate, a perennial MVP candidate, get moved via trade? Very, very rarely, right? LeBron has been on the move, a couple times of his own accord. KD seems to go wherever the heck he wants, but, generally MVPs stay put. And, we talked about this when we talk about the All-Star game in February. This will come up again, but we said one of the problems with the All-Star game these days is that players move around too much. So before, before 30 years ago, for the first maybe 50 years of the NBA, a move like this would have been virtually unheard of. So the ability to even make a trade like this has only existed in about 35% of the NBA's lifespan. This is one of the biggest of all time, if not, easily top 3, top 5, because, these are players. This is a player with a ring, who, has been a perennial all-star, being sent to a team that was just, remember, this is also a team that has won a championship in the last 5 years and a team that went to the championship last year. So it's not like these are, it's not like this is Zion and Ja being swapped where the ceilings are there, the talent is there, but these two teams are desperate for direction. I mean, these are two teams that have figured it out recently. And so, it's shocking. And listen, We usually film, at night. You got me out of bed for this one. So, I mean, that alone should tell you how shocking this is.
No, it's definitely the most shocking trade. I mean, you do forget the Kevin Durant trade from Brooklyn to, he to Phoenix. That is a, pretty big blockbuster trade. I know. I think this is it's you can't forget the Karl Anthony Towns trade. I know it's not the same in terms of he's not really an MVP, and neither is Julius Randle, but both are, all-star caliber players, and both teams have drastically changed from that trade. And it didn't seem like they should, but both did. Not necessarily either in a bad way or not. That's neither relevant. But I do want to say that is also one of the trades that I was thinking of as well as a pretty big trade. Obviously, this is still bigger. I understand that, but I'm just saying there's been so many more. And again, mostly because just the way basketball's changed, you see trades like this happen more. And we've never seen this caliber, right? We've never seen a 25-year-old MVP caliber player getting traded mid-season on a team that's winning, and for what seems like so little.
Right. And why I like that comparison there is because Kat and Doncic both provide, this would be up there with Giannis getting traded, because they, especially at only age 25, he had a real feel of lifelong Mav, being the next Dirk, basically. Kat was, that was his first team. A guy like Randall being on the other end of that trade, a guy like Anthony Davis being involved in this trade. These are guys who are on their second, third teams. When KD got traded, same in terms of name value, but that's a dude who already had been on 3 different teams. He was clearly not committed or showed any loyalty towards any team. So I think that, especially if you're a Mavs fan out there listening, I get the anger, I get the frustration, I get the confusion here, because especially with it being a surprise the way it was, you were looking at this guy and saying, the next time I need to identify the face of, people thought you would be able to say, name a Dallas Maverick, and someone would be able to say Luka Doncic until about the year 2035. I mean, we can't do that this morning. As of yesterday, we thought we'd be able to do that 3 Olympics, 3 presidential terms from now. I mean, it really seemed like, there was a chance they'd lock him in. Now, we'll talk about, where that went wrong, or where we think that might have went wrong in just a couple minutes, because obviously, it wasn't that locked. Dallas was the one who initiated this.
Well,
so clearly they had some thoughts, but.
So so I never thought Luka was going to stay in Dallas forever. I always felt that he was eventually going to leave, but I did not think it was going to be at age 25. I thought if he was going to leave, it would be via free agency towards the end of his career. He's trying to ring chase, something like that. Or a team, blows Dallas away with this crazy trade offer of multiple, like the Rudy Gobert went for 7 like draft picks or whatever it was, right? Like some absurd amount of draft picks. And then that's the confusing part of this, is the fact that they only got 1 first-round pick out of this, right? Like that's what bothers me about this trade, isn't that I don't think either team necessarily loses. I think Dallas is still a very big contending team. They get Anthony Davis fits in fine. They've been playing without Luka. Kyrie's obviously going to be the point guard. I don't think Dallas. I think Dallas's short term does not change. Right. This is still a title contending team. I think the only thing that has really impacted is their future beyond, because let me pull up the contracts, because I think that's important. So
real quick, while you're pulling those up, sorry. This is the one. There are a couple takes out there I absolutely hate, and the reason I came on today was to make sure I just destroyed those takes. This I literally saw the Rudy Gobert argument, and the number they used was 4. So let's just use, for the sake of the argument, let's use 4 first rounders. But this idea, Rudy Gobert went for 4, and Doncic only went for 1. Well, guys, if you think Anthony Davis is a better player than Rudy Gobert, by your dumb logic, Anthony Davis is worth at least 5 first rounders. So in reality, in value, they got 6 first rounders for this. 5 for Anthony Davis and 1 that actually cashed out. So this idea of trying to attach draft picks to a player doesn't make sense unless you're going to do that for every player involved in the trade. It does not make mathematical sense to do it that way. If you believe Rudy Gobert counts as 4, Anthony Davis counts as 5.
Well, I mean, I understand what you're saying. I was just saying that's like the one. Anyway, my point is, so Anthony Davis is 31 turns 32 this upcoming in the 2025-2026 season. He's locked into contract through 2028 at the age of 34. Then he hits free agency at 35 years old. I'm not sure if he's really going to be playing after that. I mean, let's be honest. Dallas gets him for three more full seasons and the rest of this season, right?
Like, I'm just going to jump in and tell you, we've been doing this show. We literally just did our 4-year anniversary. I plan to do this with you forever. We will be talking in 2028 about his legacy. He will retire at the end of that contract,
right? I mean,
if not earlier. He does not have any body parts left that are going to make it into the 2028-2029 season. So this is. I'm sorry. Listen, prove me wrong, AD. I love you, but man, I don't believe for a second he outlives that contract because he's frail. He's getting up there.
Well, yeah, and I was going to add that as well. Throughout his career, he's just actually in March 11th he turns 32. He doesn't even have a full. Anyway, so he's up there in age already. He's on the wrong side of 30, so I understand why people are negative in that sense. But he is still playing at an MVP caliber. His stats for this season are. He's averaging 26 points, 12 rebounds, over 2 blocks, over a steal a game, 3.4 assists. He's doing very, very well. And I think he's shooting pretty now I will say this, not good in terms of other players, but for him, he's shooting one of his better 3-ball seasons in a long time. But so again, this I think is great for Dallas in the fact that this trade did not hurt their chances at championship this year, next year, and moving forward. I meant to look up Kyrie. I can look up when Kyrie's contract ends, but I'm pretty sure Kyrie's contract goes beyond next year as well. Here we go. Kyrie, his contract is They got Kyrie. So Kyrie is locked in for 2023-2024 season, 24-25 season, and he has a player option 25-26. So really, they only have 2 years, I guess, right? 1.5 years, full years, assuming Kyrie opts out. But he may not. It's a $44 million contract. He's 33 at that point. He may just take it. So they have between 1.5 to 2.5 years of trying to get another title to Dallas. They have Clay, who's been playing very well.
Real quick, just remember, with Doncic's max contract no longer in play, they can make Irving an even sweeter effort if they want to keep him at least through Davis's contract. But sorry, continue.
Correct. So you have Kyrie's still one of the better players in the league. You know, whatever you think of him as an individual human aside, as a basketball player, he's still really good, right? We can all say that. Dallas is still has a lot of talent on this team. Clay's playing well. They have a very good young center in Derek Lively. And Anthony Davis is now finally able to go back into the position of playing a 4 instead of playing the 5, which he's much more comfortable playing. And this Dallas team, this starting 5, looks much more well-rounded to me than the Lakers starting 5 now.
I actually think it's a great deal for both of them. We'll talk about the Lakers. But yeah, guys, these people out there who are saying, Dallas gave up, a superstar, so they automatically lose. This is a team that had Najee Marshall, PJ Washington, Maxi Kleber, and God help us, Quentin Grimes as their backup 3, as their forwards on the depth chart prior to this. I mean, this was a team. We have seen Dallas. How many years did they started to figure it out by going out and getting PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford last year, and that helped get them to the finals. But how many years did we just watch this team be like 7 guards, 1 generic center, like the Eric Dampiers of the world, and that was it, right? And this team had this "we love guards" philosophy for so many years, and it never worked. I mean, their one ring they have is with Dirk, right? And then for a while they were like, we'll just have Jason Terry play the 3. We could figure that out later. Even Klay Thompson, is, a stretch as a 3. You have a much, much deeper roster here now. You have Dinwiddie, you have Klay who can play the 2. You can have Jaden Hardy come in with Dinwiddie if you want to move Dinwiddie to the 2. If you want to go with the all offense, all the time team, you could have Grimes and Clay play the 2 and the 3 if you need a more defensive lineup. PJ Washington can now play anywhere from the 3 to the 5. I mean, you just have a ton of roster flexibility now. They still have a couple draft picks that they could move if they wanted to. If they wanted to add to this, they own their 26, so their 25 draft picks in play. Their 31 draft pick is in play. So I think Dallas is a much more well-rounded team here. Lively, I know, is hurt right now, but Daniel Gafford's actually been playing out of his mind. That's going to drop back with there now being a true big next to him. But, still in some capacity, whether you now have Irving, Dinwiddie, Clay, and PJ Washington, Gafford, AD, of course, Lively. I mean, you run 8 deep before you even get to the, the Hardys of the world, the Najee Marshalls of the world who have been playing well. This is a truly deep
Max Christie is a good player.
Max Christie might end up starting on this team. If not, he's going to at least kind of fill that Jason Terry 6-man role that we know, Cuban lives and dies by. So I like what they have here. I still think, they're a serious player in the West.
My only concern for this team is their future from this trade. I think that the compromises their long-term future, but do they care if they win a championship in the next 2 years?
Well, that's really the question here. So Doncic had the opt-out in 2026. And so with all the concerns about his conditioning that are out there, with the concerns about the max contract, and remember, this is the whole idea, the whole essence of this trade is the idea that superstars move nowadays. And that's actually why this is going to be a problem for the Lakers when we get to the Lakers side of this. But if let's say you're Dallas and you genuinely believe that he was not staying past 2026, the year is now 2027. Which of these would you rather have? Nothing, or a 34-year-old AD and a 2029 first rounder? I get the idea from that perspective, and having that first rounder. Because remember, as good as Luka is, other than LeBron, there isn't a whole lot of firepower on that team. And I know the Lakers have this kind of magic, right? They can just go out and seemingly buy whoever they want. But there's a real chance that 2029 first is not pick 27, not pick 29, not pick 30. I mean, even a Doncic team should traditionally get to the playoffs, but that could easily be pick 19, pick 21, which is a usable pick. I mean, that's definitely something that they can work with. So, I don't think Dallas got completely hosed here. I think they're a deeper team today. I think if Doncic is on a different team other than the Lakers in 2027, you can look back and say this was actually a coup for Dallas. So, it hurts in the moment. You're giving up a superstar, which in a league that superstars have won something like 73 of, top. I mean, we're talking like first ballot Hall of Famers have been responsible for winning 73 of the 75 championships. I mean, it's a stars league. We talk about that all the time on this show.
Right.
I get the danger in doing this. I get why you never give that up. But if you genuinely didn't believe Doncic was there long-term, or if you genuinely didn't believe he was buying into your fitness program, right. We know Jason Kidd can be a bit of a hard ass sometimes. This kid kept going and saying, I just can't get this kid to stop eating Wendy's. I just can't get this kid to train in July. I just can't get this kid ... I can see where the logic was on this. And I'm sure we'll hear stories eventually. Because
they've already come out that's saying that Luka right now is pushing 270.
Yeah, that's
which, for a guard, that is significantly right. I mean, that's like center level of size.
Right.
He is 6'7" or whatever he is. So, it's a little bit different on his body. But he's always had that baby fat issue that he comes into the season with and stuff like that. And right now, because he's not playing, he doesn't, necessarily condition himself as well. And it's always been known about him, right? Like, and that's something that you have to look at when you're LA, right? Because they had that issue with Shaq, right? Like, that's why Shaq's career didn't, it started to dwindle towards the end, obviously towards the end, your career goes down, but you know what I mean, right? Like the height of Shaq after he left the Lakers, he had about two good years, right? In Miami, maybe three.
Well, let's put this into perspective a different way. If you're sitting there going, Doncic is only 25, he's going to easily have 9, 10, good years left at minimum. He's going to play till 37, 38. Not if at 32, his body's wearing down because his knees just couldn't take the extra weight. I mean, now you're looking at 3 years of AD and a first rounder for maybe 7 years of a player. If Doncic retires at 33, 34, well, then all of a sudden that argument's out the window too. I think a lot of people who are taking the Lakers win, Mavs lose, argument here are working under a lot of assumptions. The assumption being that Doncic is just getting started. And listen, for everyone who does take that natural course where 28 is truly their physical prime, you have people who either for one reason or another, Derrick Rose it, right? You have people who came and went earlier in their career.
Yeah.
And so, I don't necessarily know if we're taking the right approach here, calling Doncic a 10 years left guy, a 12 years left guy. I think there's reasons.
Ideally, that's the case, right?
That.
Ideally, he's lasting 10 to 12 more years. Ideally, that's what the Lakers are hoping for with this. And I totally understand why the Lakers made this trade, right? Like,
well, if you're the Lakers, you have to do this. You 100%
right? Like, how often do you get a superstar handed to you?
Yeah,
right. Like, and again, that's not saying that they didn't give up stuff. They did. I think this does hurt their short-term implications. And no, maybe that's the word. I don't know. The short term for the Lakers in terms of getting a championship this season, I do think it does. They were already hurting with bigs, right?
See, I disagree with that one too. I think they just haven't necessarily explored their bigs. Jackson Hayes is basically lost on their depth chart. Guy has a career 10, 6, and 1 block when he starts in his career. They haven't even attempted to see what Christian Koloko, their rookie center, can do. Dorian Finney-Smith can play the small 5 and has played with Doncic before, so he can play a little more small 5 with LeBron playing small 4 while Doncic is getting used to the other players. So I actually think that as long as they can be a little bit creative there with some of their lineups while Doncic is developing, I actually really like what they have. Now, their main problem is by getting rid of that 29, the money's not great, and they're down to a 2031 draft pick they can move. I mean, they've really mortgaged what they can do. So this very well might be the team that they're rolling with.
Do you think that – so what do they do if LeBron does hang it up?
At the end of this year?
Yeah.
I'll panic, cry, throw him a parade and send him on his way. Let Bronny James play 42 minutes a night next year. No, I genuinely don't know. I've said all along, I think that the Jets with Aaron Rodgers and the Lakers with LeBron were two of the most we don't care what happens next franchises in all of sports this year.
I mean, obviously their plan is to now build around Luka once LeBron does hang it up.
Right.
But do you have what assets do you have to do that?
Yeah, I mean, you don't trade the 2031 because that means next year you'd have a 31 and a 30 or a 32 you can move. But in reality, no, you have Max Christie was one of your young pieces, that you could either use in a trade or, build around. He's gone. You have Dalton Connect. I do like this Koloko kid. If I'm pronouncing that wrong, I apologize. If it's the emphasis is somewhere else. They do have Jared Vanderbilt, Jackson Hayes, a couple guys, a couple nice bigs to come off the bench there eventually. But honestly, if you're the Lakers, you have a bigger problem here because LeBron is done in the next couple of years, no matter what. And now that Doncic has been, for lack of a better word, backstabbed by Dallas, the next chance he has to get out, he doesn't owe anyone anything at this point. And as nice as much as the American standard is to be in LA or New York, there's no reason that Luka Doncic, an international player, should have any loyalty to any perceived notion of what are the good cities and the bad cities, in America. And so if he sees a path to a title, or if he sees a path to spite Dallas, I see no reason to think that there isn't a world in 2027 where neither LeBron or Doncic is in Los Angeles. And so if you're LA, as nice as it is to make this trade, and I get LA is one of the most arrogant front offices in all of sports, there had to be some win now consideration in this trade as well, which is why I think they do believe that they still are a Western favorite with the addition of Doncic in the immediate, which is, going back to what you originally said. But yeah, when LeBron goes down, you really don't have much by way of forwards on that team. I mean, looking here right now, their depth chart 3, 4, and 5. You have Rui Hachimura, DFS, Finney Smith, LeBron, Vanderbilt, Hayes, Kleber, and Koloko, right? Not really nothing behind LeBron there. So, this team is Doncic and a whole bunch of question marks when LeBron goes anyway, which kind of is what we've kind of seen that with a lot of stars, and usually we've seen stars stay when they're homegrown, but that's not Doncic in this case. So it'll be interesting to see if he then says, I want out of LA, and where this goes from there.
Well, and so part of this, this trade was 100, to my understanding, from everything I've read, was Dallas was unhappy with Luka's conditioning and his and that is like the biggest thing about this, right? And they allegedly went to one other team. Dallas's plan was always from this trade was to trade to get a star, or I guess another star, and I guess a draft capital, and for this season, because they want to still contend, right? Like that's what's important to them is contending.
Right.
Who do you think that other team was?
It's a great question. Presumably it needed to be a forward. There's no reason to crowd that backcourt. Dinwiddie, by the way, his splits with and without Doncic are also alarming. He takes a nice step up here, getting to play next to his buddy Kyrie, or to be the sixth man on that team alone. So you got to imagine it wasn't a guard. Lively and Gafford with PJ Washington's ability to play the 5, a center wouldn't make sense. So we'd be looking at a team looking to move a forward, which is Jimmy Butler immediately. Butler in Miami immediately comes to mind. And that's
so I will say this: that does make sense. And if I'm Miami, knowing Miami, they would not want Luka, right?
Correct,
because he does not fit that Miami. He does not fit the Heat mentality of, no Oreos,
Correct. The only other team that would have made sense is if they reached out to the Pelicans about Zion. And again, that's a team that would go, you want us to just trade our weight for your weight? No, thank you. We've played this game before. So I think those are, off the top of my head, those are the only two kind of lost franchise pieces that play the 3 or the 4. And, the teams on the other side of that trade definitely have reasons to hang up the phone. Otherwise, I can't. And who knows? Maybe they called, Boston and said, we want Tatum, and they just got laughed at. Maybe it was a pipe dream. But in terms of trades that actually make sense, that you could also see the other side saying no to, Miami because of Doncic's attitude, or New Orleans because it's specifically the weight issue or the training issue, you could see those two teams having the piece to move, but ultimately saying no to the trade.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely went through a range of emotions when I woke up this morning and read this. I do still feel in the short term, this benefits Dallas a lot more than people are giving them credit. I think that Dallas is still easily in conversation for a contender in the West. I don't mean contender like making the playoffs. I mean actually legitimately contending for a championship. Even after this trade, I think Anthony Davis's defense will fit in perfectly on this team, and he has played with he's played with other stars enough that that are not just LeBron, that it shouldn't be an issue. Like he's been on the Olympic teams. He's played with Kyrie and with Clay on the Olympics before. I don't know. I like Dallas's. I like Dallas's short look on this. It's hard to say you don't like this for the Lakers, but I am a bit concerned about this trade for the Lakers. Is Luka sold on being in Dallas? Because Luka did not ask to be traded. He from it sounds like he wanted to stay in Dallas at least for this contract. Does that make him, is he now going to be motivated to? Is he going to be not motivated because he left something he was comfortable? These are things you have to be concerned about, especially for when there's this is a big trade, and obviously LA, you have to take this chance. You have to. You'd be fools not to take this gamble. And this is not the first time the Lakers did a trade on February 1st. They traded for Pau Gasol on February 1st. So maybe this.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's awesome.
I only know that because the internet, not because I actually knew it.
you just sit there with a little calendar. What happened on this day in sports history?
So I mean, does that mean anything? Absolutely not. It's just happenstance, but it's hilarious. And I don't know. I honestly, I thought, and this is silly. It doesn't really matter. I really did think that Luka was going to be a Knick in a few years when his contract, when the Knicks were, at this point, the end of their current teams tied together in terms of contracts, and they were looking to move forward into a new direction. Tibbs has probably been out by then or whatever. It still could happen. I don't really care one way or the other, to be honest, because I'm very happy with the current roster and how things are going with the Knicks. But I had to bring the Knicks in because, that's our show.
Hey, listen, and again, happy 4th anniversary, buddy. It was about 4 years ago that you and I were stuck in a pandemic. We poured a couple glasses of wine, got on YouTube for the first time, and just complained about the Knicks. So hard to believe we've added, 4 co-hosts, new name, new everything, 2 other sports, right? We've come a long way in 4 years, but it did all begin with the Knicks. But real quick, I do need to go back to. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'll jump in because I'm going to segue.
I did say that. I want to say this. I was expecting a big trade to happen this year. Mm-hmm. I was really expecting it to be De'Aaron Fox trade news coming out.
Yeah,
definitely not Luka.
No, I agree. And somebody, I think it was somebody on Yahoo Sports' panel, and I appreciate what all their coverage on this, pointed out this could be the gateway drug to one of the wildest trade deadlines we've ever seen, which I hope, I love a good trade deadline. But what I was going to say is the other advantage here with AD, I just think it's worth pointing out, when you look at the Western standings right now in the top 4, and again, things can always shake out, but you have Memphis, Houston, and Oklahoma City. It seems to be one of those years where the younger teams are just putting in more of an effort to win in the regular season, which means those are the teams you'll be presumably going through. And when you look at those rosters, they, particularly, the Thunder, those teams have a lot of guys who like to attack the basket while also having built teams that are quantitatively deep at big. With Memphis, you have Triple J and Edie and Aldama and Brandon Clark and Laraglia. You just have the whole squad there, and the Thunder it feels like they have a Jalen Williams at every position, but, they're deep everywhere. And so getting somebody who can both control the paint, slow those young and gun teams down, and also just adding to the depth battles, because if nothing else, they're young teams. So you want to kind of exploit them with strong defense in the playoffs, but you also need to be as deep as you can. And so, a move like this that gives Dallas more versatility, makes them deeper, no offense to Maxi Kleber, but at the end of the day, give me Christie and AD, if we're talking about depth, that's literally firepower in both directions. And, AD locking in as the 4, like I said, gives Marshall and PJ Washington way more flexibility on this team. So I think the depth and the speed of the teams at the top of the West makes a guy like AD even more valuable this year.
Right. I will. So real quick, Maxi Kleber is not young either. He's 33 years old.
Maxi Kleber's claim to fame is that there's actually a Reddit chain about how his name is mispronounced in America, even though the NBA and himself says it that way. But apparently that is the German word for glue and would be pronounced Kleber in Germany. And Reddit is all over this hatred of Americans' pronunciation of his name.
Isn't he American?
And that's literally. I'm telling you, just Google Maxi Kleber pronunciation, and the first thing you'll get is a Reddit chain about the frustration of his name.
Wait. Is DE Denmark?
I would have to guess it's Delaware, depending on what you're looking at.
It says country.
Oh, Denmark. Yeah, I guess.
So then, whatever.
I don't
know. I thought he was.
You get my point, though. The fact that this is
I'm
the
not
first
sorry.
time we've brought him up in 34 minutes, and it's to discuss that his name
He is from
angers
Germany.
people in Germany. You know, there's clearly
Wait, why does wait? If he's from
clearly
Germany,
a missing value to this guy.
why does Sport Rack have him as DE for country? That's so confusing. Oh, Deutschland. That makes sense.
Listen. You learn a lot on this show. You never know what you're going to pick up.
But yeah, he's 33. He's not been much this year.
And Markieff Morris's claim to fame is when you get to play Name That Morris, right? Give me a fact about him, and I'll see if I can tell you which Morris twin you're talking about. I don't think that the other pieces in this trade.
This is not the one that played for New York.
Oh, I would have got that wrong. I genuinely thought we had Markieff at one point. All right, who knew?
Well, I'm looking. I don't see New York here at all. Dallas, Miami, LA, OKC, Washington, Phoenix, and that's where he started.
Fair enough. Good on you, buddy. Best of luck as an 11th man. If you don't get bought out here, you feel like an obvious buyout candidate in this situation, but we'll see what happens.
He is the same age as us, though. He was born in 1989.
Listen, if I could be doing what he's doing, I would be doing it. So he definitely has bested me in terms of physical fitness.
I think the biggest steal of this is the fact that people who don't realize that Dallas got Max Christie in this.
Yeah, he's a heck of a player, and he also, again, Christie and Connect were the future in LA, not necessarily stars, but in terms of players you could look at and say these guys could definitely still be on this team in 2029, 2031. You literally gave up half of your future in that sense, and so it's riskier than people think for the Lakers. And again, a little perspective here. For most franchises, you would absolutely bite. If I even told you right now, hey, I just came back from the future, Doncic leaves after next season. When he has the ability to opt out, he opts out and he goes. Other franchises, if this was a trade with the Hawks, with the Blazers, with the Pistons, with the Wizards, with the Knicks, all of those franchises would say, but I get one chance at a championship? Yeah, absolutely. No brainer. Sign me up for it. But if you're LA, who seems to just go out and buy the next superstar every year, there is more risk involved with this for the Lakers than pretty much any other team on earth making this trade. You do have to consider perspective when you're evaluating this trade. And listen, don't come at me with, oh, he's saying the Lakers lost this trade. I'm not. I'm just saying that relative to other teams, the Lakers have an absolute empty cabinet of draft picks. They have an absolutely empty cabinet of youth. And so to give up a first and to give up one of their only young studs for a player whose long-term health and long-term career plans are unknown at this point, considering this trade was such a mystery in the night, there is some risk involved here for the Lakers, more than there would be with other teams.
Now, before we wrap things up, do you think LeBron really did not know about this trade?
Yeah, he's not. Listen, I've seen Space Jam. He's not that good of an actor. If he says no, it's a no.
Damn. Wow.
Now, again, there's a difference between I didn't know directly Doncic was coming over on February 1st, and I have gone into the general manager's office every day for the last 6 weeks and said, we need more star power on this team. Like, just because he didn't know this exact trade was going to happen at the exact time doesn't mean that he didn't know they have been trying to get him one more stud to get one more shot at a ring. That I could see being the case, at which point LeBron, who has a history of being it's LeBron's world and we're all just living in it, may be downplaying that so that we don't connect the dots and say he facilitated this, but he may have at least, tickled the brain of the GM a little bit and said, hey, if you get a chance, take it. And then when the opportunity arose, the Lakers front office went, this is what LeBron's been asking for. It's like if you didn't have to go Christmas shopping for your kids and the gifts just magically showed up under your tree, right? You would absolutely do that, right? It's why Santa Claus is real, and so, I get why the Lakers do this. I could see a world where LeBron has been asking for something like this to happen, but I don't think LeBron was in the office yesterday at 6 p.m. going, hey, Dallas is about to call you. Make sure you say yes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that Anthony Davis and LeBron James were there's any issues between the two. I think that this, unfortunately, he had. I mean, if your choice is Anthony Davis or Luka Doncic, you're picking Luka, right?
Yeah, you're picking Luka, and even if there was any animosity there, I mean, I get it was the bubble year, but they have a ring together. They clearly know how to make it work. So you can't say there was any sort of unreconcilable differences over there. In LA, it's basic math at the end of the day, and those people who just immediately jump to what is Dallas doing caught on to that basic math, right? You're gaining 7 years of human life. And human life that is significantly better at basketball. With all due respect to AD, Doncic is significantly better. I get what they're doing here, but again, there's always risk when the guys who are the core of your team, which AD was, have won a ring together, and you're trading for a guy who comes with some baggage. There are definitely some questions there.
Well, I for one am interested to see how this plays out for the rest of the season and moving forward.
100%.
I don't necessarily think that Lakers are done making moves. I think they'll probably do a couple of small moves here and there to help, fill out the roster back to what they that they're looking for. And I think that I'm curious to see if the Lakers, if this season doesn't go well, LeBron does want to play one more, do they trade LeBron instead this offseason?
What they do with LeBron and what LeBron does will tell you a lot about the initial conversations they have with Luka Doncic. I will say that if there is any concern that Doncic is not going to be happy in LA, they may just blow this whole thing up, or at the very least, you may start to see LeBron get more vocal about wanting out. So LeBron will kind of be the telltale sign about what's going on with Doncic. But I think, obviously, it's hard to imagine a world where LeBron is not the focus of any team. This is still LeBron's team, but I think Doncic is actually the one who now controls the fate of this team.
Time's ticking.
Yeah,
LeBron's 40.
Yeah, no, it's Doncic's. LeBron might be the name on the car, but Doncic is the engine right now.
Yep. Well, anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Remember, like, share, subscribe, comment down below. What do you think of this trade? We'll catch you all next time.
Love you guys.
Good night.